Hello, fellow Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Pleasanton. This meeting is being recorded and it will be available for viewing on our YouTube channel. I want to welcome our visitors. We hope you enjoyed today's meeting and come back again. If any visitors want to learn about becoming a member, please see me or Ricky Walters after the meeting. I'd like to give a special thanks to today's greeter, Bill Burke, and also to today's attendance greeter, James White. Thank you. And thank you to today's treasurer, Kathy Alameda and Dave Clausen, and also Ricky for running our technology. Special thanks to Bill Evans for coordinating our weekly assignments, and to Heidi Murphy and Jim Gulseth for planning our weekly programs. All right, so if we could have Bill Wheeler lead us in the pledge.
Join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Please be seated. And Ricky, if we could pause the recording, and then Steve Van Dorn is going to lead us in We Care.
Fellow Rotarians, it is my great honor to give the inspirational moment today. I normally don't get asked to do this because I have other responsibilities, but I'm honored to talk about why we have in the month of February. Anybody know why we have Black History Month in the month of February? Huh? Because both President Lincoln and abolitionist Jefferson Davis were born in February. And we also just separated a week and a half ago, President's Day, because both President Lincoln again and President George Washington were born in February. So President Lincoln is one of my favorite American presidents, and that's what this inspiration is about. He was our 16th president, a man of highest moral character, being nicknamed Honest Abe. Abraham Lincoln never lost touch with the common people. From being raised in a log cabin, cleaning land and splitting rails, Lincoln taught himself law, gained a respected reputation as a lawyer, became an 8th Circuit judge in Illinois. Abraham Lincoln had been elected to the Illinois State Legislature, to the U.S. Congress, and after becoming a national figure through debating against Stephen Douglas's pro-slavery bill, Lincoln was nominated as the Republican candidate for president. Only 1 week after being inaugurated as president of the Southern States, as president, the Southern States formed the Confederacy, and within a month, the Civil War had begun. Think about that. Having a president being inaugurated, and 1 week later, his country is at civil war. What a deal. Thanks, Bill. The Civil War ended 4 years later, April 9, 1865. By the conclusion of the war, over 620,000 men had died, which is just short of the combined total fatalities of all other wars that America has been in to date. Only 5 days later, after the end of the Civil War, on April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in Ford's Theater by John Wilkes Booth. So Lincoln enjoyed being president for only a combined 12 short days when our country was not at war. I never thought about it that way as I was looking at the dates and looking at this. 20 months after becoming president, Lincoln, in direct disregard to the Supreme Court 1857 Dred Scott decision, issued his famous Emancipation Proclamation. This said that if the Southern states did not cease their rebellion by January 1, 1863, then the proclamation of all slaves being freedmen would go into effect. We are living in a time where we often hear about presidential executive orders, but I don't think it's unfair to say that this executive order is possibly the most famous in American history. I want to leave you with a couple of quotes from President Lincoln, who literally saved our Union. On April 6, 1859, Lincoln wrote in a letter to H.L. Pierce and others, "This is a world of compensation, and he who would be no slave must consent to have no slave. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves, and under a just God cannot long retain it." On February 22, 1861, in a speech at Independence Hall in Philadelphia early in his presidency, Lincoln declared, "The Declaration of Independence, which gave liberty not alone to the people of this country, but hope to all the world, for all future time. It was that which gave promise that in due time the weights would be lifted from the shoulders of all men, and that all should have an equal chance." This is the sentiment that embodied the Declaration of Independence. This last line is stunning. "I would rather be assassinated on the spot than surrender to it." It's almost like President Lincoln prophetically knew that what he was standing for and against would cost him his very life. We know that it actually did cost him his life. He was an amazing president, one of my favorites, that quite literally saved our country. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ricky. Now, next, I'd like to welcome any visiting Rotarians and ask that they be introduced. Do we have any visiting Rotarians?
President-elect Mark. Fellow Rotarians and guests. From the Rotary Club of, in the category of, please welcome Duckna.
Good afternoon. So my guest today is one of my top sons, Evan Schwegerle.
Good afternoon. President-elect Mark, fellow Rotarians and guests. It is my honor to introduce my guest as my husband, Stuart Simone. Today is our 26th wedding anniversary. And if any of you say, "Way to go, Stuart," I'm going to kill you. But I do want to say this is not the first anniversary that he has spent at Rotary. Back in 2019, I came to him and said, "Hey, babe, do you want to go to Paradise for our anniversary?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." So we, on our anniversary, climbed in a bus and went up to Paradise and handed out a check for fire victims up there. So it wasn't quite the paradise he was expecting, but it was still a good anniversary. So thank you.
All right, any more guests? Very good. Do we have any Zoomers with us today?
Hey,
All right. Go ahead, Dennis.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Glad to be here.
hi, oh, go ahead.
Dick's trying to get some attention down there.
I'm always trying to get some attention. Anyway, I don't know if you can you hear me?
Mhm.
Glad to be here vicariously.
Is your first name Gordon?
Yes,
Well,
You
that's
may
what it
call
says
me
on the
Gordon.
Zoom.
You may call me Gordon. I prefer that you do under these circumstances. Anyway, good to be here, guys and gals.
All right, thank you. Today we're gonna skip our song and video because we've got three announcements and we're gonna start with Randy Brown is gonna talk a little bit about our upcoming poker event.
Thank you. Standing in for President Jim, President-elect Mark. We have our poker tournament coming up and we need sponsors for baskets. We always ask this. So I'm going to come around to tables. If you want to sponsor a basket, it's $150 and my wife will put it together for you and then it'll be raffled off at the poker tournament. So I'll come around each table.
Thanks a lot. And we do have the poker events. It's highlighted on our website and Facebook and also X. So please share that with your friends and colleagues. Next, we want to talk a little bit about community service. I know got an event this coming Saturday with Living Arroyos. My daughter's actually working for that organization that's going to kind of clean up the creeks. We've got another member, Mark Francis, who's part of our club. He introduced me years ago to the dangers of plastics in our water stream. It actually, you get little small plastic particulates that can enter people's bloodstream, and it's not good. So it'll be a nice, worthwhile event. And Richard's going to talk a little bit more about that and some other events coming up. So.
Thank you, President-elect Mark. So I'm going to start with the bad news. Despite months of planning, the blood drive has been canceled by Stanford. Please don't get me started. Apparently, the City of Pleasanton parking lot. Well, okay. Well, I appreciate that. But anyway, so despite that, the City of Pleasanton parking lot apparently is being renovated. I don't know what's going on. Maybe Heidi can. Okay, well. Apparently, the bus cannot park at the City of Pleasanton on March 4th. So I apologize. I've already apologized to Richard Mankins because we did this for him. And so if anybody registered, please do not show up on March 4th. Okay. Sorry. I'll work on a replacement. Yes. Well, I do understand that, but I think we were trying to do this as a group and have our own donation event. So okay, thank you. So the good news is we're not going to be missing something for March. We, of course, had a backup plan. And so here comes the little cart, the coat donation cart. Okay, so this is not the kind of diaper drive you might be thinking of. This is a baby diaper drive. Let's keep it clean. I was going to have Ricky dress up in a diaper, and do a skit, but well, because you were part of the coat skit, so I thought we'd do another skit. You know, you always say yes when I ask you. So, so this is something that the Pleasanton North Rotary Club allowed us to join with them. And I joined on the premise that we're going to beat them. Okay. So we need to fill this basket 20 times over, right? Are we going to beat PNR? Yeah. Okay. So it's diapers and wipes. Okay. And it doesn't matter what brand. And if you're like me, I haven't bought diapers for my kids in a long time. So they're looking for size 3 to 6. And so just look at the box and it has numbers on it. Okay, so this cart will be here every Rotary meeting. So please fill it up. The entire month of March. So we have 4 meetings in March. Yes. Thank you, Sherry. Awesome. Yes. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So there's a group called Little Miracles. They're here in Pleasanton. They were started in 2022 by 2 women that just wanted to give back and help support families that can't afford all the diapers that kids need. And I think, Bill, you said that they wrote a grant. So they're a newer nonprofit. And so I'm not sure if we've approved them or not, but let's support them by filling this cart over and over again. Next announcement is you may have noticed on the email blasts that I've been labeling the community service events as an easy event. I'm going to do a medium event and a difficult event. I don't know if anyone noticed that or not, but I'm doing that for your benefit. I did listen to you. I do pay attention. A number of you said that some of the events I was putting together were too difficult physically for you. And so if I say it's easy, I think it's easy. Of course, you have to judge your own physical capabilities. But if it's easy, please come out and support us. If it's difficult and you can't do it, I know a number of you always email me back and say you can't make it. You don't need to do that. This is all volunteer. If you can do it, we'd appreciate it, but it's not mandatory. So just wanted you to know that I'm trying to help you there. Next thing, Mark had mentioned the event on Saturday. So this Saturday, we are meeting, I don't know if you can bring up the website or is it too, sorry. This Saturday, we're doing the Arroyos cleanup again with Scout Troop 911. We're doing this at Burnell Corporate Park. So it's very close to everyone here that's in Pleasanton. We're meeting at 9 a.m. and we're going to be doing what we did last time. They will provide buckets and sticks, and we're picking up garbage along the creek. And the great thing is this was done in coordination with Scout Troop 911. I'm happy to say that we have 23 scouts coming to this event and 6 adults because they have to have a scout adult ratio. So let's just count that as 30 people. Click right there and you'll get, no, right there, right on my finger. There you go. So this is the typical community service thing I'm doing as often as I can, keeping it up to date. So you can just click on the tabs to see what's going on. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to see where you can register for this. And then you'll see some information about where we're meeting. Why do I want you to register? Well, it's important for me to know who's coming so that I can coordinate with these different organizations. If for some reason an event gets canceled, it's helpful for me to know who to reply to. And as Mark mentioned, not only is this helping get the plastic out of the arroyos, but the scouts are getting conservation credits, which is one of the credits they need to be able to earn their scout badges. So come out, let's support the scouts. And then lastly, I do want to talk about the event on March 8th and March 29th. And I'd like Steve Van Dorn to come up here. We're going to be doing some work over at Sunflower Hill Gardens in Livermore. And Steve's going to talk about that.
Okay, thank you. So as first of all, I want to thank you, Richard, for all you're doing with all these great events. And hopefully we'll get more participation from our club because Pleasanton North is kicking our butt on most of these, right? The ones we're partnering with them on. So anyway, just a little competition. But on the 8th of March and the 29th, Richard and Ricky have put together a great opportunity for us to help Sunflower Hill build a new compost. And the 8th, it's going to be pretty difficult work. On the 8th, they're going to be post hole digging and cement pouring from 9 to 2. And on the 29th, which I've signed up for, is we need 10 returns for the first job. The second one, we also need 10 to 15. And we're going to be attaching wood to, I guess, the posts that are being put in 3 or 4 weeks prior. So, and that's from 9 to 2. So everybody's familiar with Sunflower Hill Gardens, right? Have you been over there before? Yeah, it's a super facility. It's basically its mission is to provide outdoor space for young adults that have special needs and other opportunities. So, and it's located in Livermore. So anybody interested? Yeah, all right. And as you know, Ricky and I sit on that board of directors. So we'd love to see our club come out in full mass. So please consider it and let Richard know if you have any further questions, or Ricky and I. So Oh, well, okay, well, that was what I thought I did with the garden, but I'll dig more into it. Sunflower Hill runs a facility in Pleasanton at Irby Ranch. It's a housing for young adults with special needs. And we have 31 units there, right? Is that correct? And we're also in the process of working with developers to have 2 additional facilities in Dublin. And then we're also very close to confirming one in Lafayette. So not only do we provide housing for young adults with special needs, we also provide special programs at these facilities. So that's the whole mission of Sunflower Hill. Did I cover it, Ricky? Yeah. Good. Thank you. Please tell Susan I did a good job. That's our chair of our board.
All right, thank you, Steve, and also thank you, Richard. And Julie? Got one more announcement here. Julie Lewis is going to give an update on the Rotary Don Lewis Say Yes to Music grant.
Thank you, President-elect Mark. Just about this time last year, we had our very first grant process with kids here in Pleasanton who are in high school. And we gave out $2,000. We gave out $1,000 grant and then 2 $500 grants. And I just wanted to let you know a little bit about what's happened to those kids. So one of the young man, Nico Macario, who got the $1,000 grant, he was the young man you might remember who played the guitar and was also a composer. And I am so excited. I've been talking to Nico. Unfortunately, the unfortunate news is that his father lost his job and he didn't get to go to UC Santa Barbara last fall, but he's hoping he's on track to start this next fall at UC Santa Barbara. And I think he was also a recipient of our scholarship program. So I think he'll still be qualify for that scholarship. I think they're just holding on to it for him. But Nico is in the midst of developing 2 apps. He's 18 years old. He has put together 2 apps, one for learning guitar and one for helping people with dementia. And I don't think I can really share. I told him I shouldn't share this information publicly at this point until he copyrights his work. And he said, oh, well, thank you for telling me that. But I want to continue to help mentor him. And I'm hoping to hook him up with some folks in Silicon Valley that are friends who know a lot about apps. And he's just doing amazing work. I'm really amazed by what he's doing with the grant that we gave him. And Amina Fu was the pianist who just wowed us all. And she took the $500 we gave her and she did a concert at the Firehouse Arts Center to raise money, a benefit concert to raise money for her charity, Music for Minors Too. And this is a charity that she works with to teach underserved children music for free. And so she's been using her money to do that. And Yufei Shen, who was is an amazing violist, is now working with the San Francisco Symphony in one of their programs. And she was able to take the $500 grant that we gave her and to have her viola repaired because it needed a new bridge. So this money that we gave to these kids has been used so wisely and is going to promote amazing things in the future. So I wanted to let you know that, Ricky, can you show on the website our link to the grant process this year? So we are partnering with PCAC, Pleasanton Cultural Arts Council, and this year's applications are due by March 7th. There's a link on our webpage that you can go and see all about the grant and what's required, what we're asking the kids for. And then on March the 23rd, we will announce the winners at a concert that will be given. And I'll send out more details about that. But it's an amazing program. It's the name of the grant is the Don Lewis Say Yes to Music Grant. Don would be so thrilled to see what's going on. And one last thing, this year, I have asked some friends of mine from the San Francisco Recording Academy. This is the San Francisco chapter of the Grammys. And I have a couple people who have offered to be on our review board to choose the grants. And I hope that bringing some current professionals from the music industry into this process, that we can maybe make some connections for some of these kids. And I do want to let you know that we have like maybe one spot open. If I can certainly fill it, but if there's somebody from the club that wants to participate this year on this grant process, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and fill it, but I'd love to have a Rotarian join me in this process. So any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Next up, Heidi Murphy will be introducing today's guest speaker.
Thank you, President-elect Mark. So first off, I'd like to apologize. I failed to update the calendar because I forgot I was supposed to do that. So your calendar will be updated by this weekend. All of your upcoming things will be correct. The good news is you have an even better topic today than what you thought. So what's on your bucket list? And Brian Gillette is here to speak to you. I was awed when I read his biography, just an amazing resume, an amazing background, and just a really dedicated, incredible personal life as well. So Brian Gillette is a former human resources executive, an ultra distance athlete, and the president and founder of Summiting Group, a consulting firm that coaches leaders and teams to reach their peak performance. I'm going to jump into your endurance athlete stuff because I think this is amazing. As a lifelong endurance athlete, he's cycled across the US, completed a 300-mile bicycle ride in one day. Yeah, and finished many 50 and 100-mile ultra distance runs. At age 47, he ran 205 miles around Lake Tahoe, which is 8 back-to-back marathons in 76 hours with only 90 minutes of sleep. Last year, he completed a marathon on a ship in Antarctica and recently climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. In addition to all of that, just after the war in Ukraine broke out, he and his family raised money to get the equivalent street value of $150,000 worth of prescription medicine to Ukraine. I am so excited to hear what's on your bucket list and how we learn to do more with our lives. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Heidi. We have this love-hate relationship with Rotary, and this is where Heidi's going, uh-oh, what is he going to say? So if we'll get the slides up momentarily, but on the love side, so my brother back in about early 90s was diving down in Belize, and he was scuba diving, and he came up from the dive and he started to go into convulsions. And as he was going into convulsions, they were able to get him onto the boat, get him to shore. There was a doctor that was waiting there for him, and they were able to administer something that kind of kept him alive for a little bit longer. And when you're in that type of situation, what you need is you need a recompression chamber. And to go find a recompression chamber, you would have either had to have taken a boat to another island, which would have taken too long, or you would have had flown. And if any of you are scuba divers, you know you can't fly because of the elevation. 3 weeks earlier, a Rotary Club had installed a recompression chamber. So he's alive because of you. That's the love part. Now, on the other side is, you know, I'm good friends with Kevin Greenlee. Kevin Greenlee is at that other organization. And he and I bike a lot. He does a lot for Rotary Youth Exchange. And so we were talking about the Rotary Youth Exchange. We've hosted Rotary kids before. And I have a sophomore and a senior in high school. And so I came home for dinner one night and I said to the kids, I said, hey, let me tell you about the Rotary Youth Exchange. See if you're interested. I figured my older son would want to take a gap year and want to be part of the Rotary Youth Exchange. We've traveled a lot. Figured that would be great. My wife and I were already ready for him to move out of the house. We don't want it, but we are mentally prepared. My younger son, who is a sophomore, said, I'll do it. And so now he is going to the Netherlands to do his junior year of high school this fall. That means that both my kids will be gone next fall. And my wife looked at me and said, that's your fault. So in all seriousness, so I love the opportunity. One, you saved my brother's life. The other one is you're giving my son just this huge opportunity. And so you guys don't underestimate the impact you're having on people's lives. So my other connection with Rotary is my uncle was district governor out of Cupertino for this district about 18 years ago. Some of you who've been around for a while may know him, Dick Lohmiller. And so about 16 years ago, I was sitting in his funeral. And at that time, my wife and I had been to about a dozen funerals within a couple of years of either side. And it really got us thinking about, all right, what's important? We have limited amount of time on this earth. And so let's make sure that we really focus on what is important. And my wife and I were talking about taking our kids out of school for a year and traveling around the world. And this pretty much confirmed it. So we took our kids out in 2017 and 2018 and traveled around the world for 1 year. They came back ahead of their peers, which makes you wonder if you can take your kids out of school for a year and they come back ahead, what happens? But what was interesting is we were at a going away party before we left. And so we were getting ready to leave we'd rented our house out. We were getting ready to leave for a year. And I was amazed with the number of people that came up to me and said, we love what you're doing. We think it's so cool that you're going to take your kids out of school for a year and travel the world, but we could never do it. And we got all sorts of excuses of why they could never do it. I couldn't leave my job. My kids would never eat the food. My husband wouldn't want to do it. Whatever it was, we got all sorts of excuses. And it really got me thinking about what is it that gets people to kind of think of these ideas and then go and do it. And I've done some interesting things, but I thought I want to learn from a bunch of other people. And so I went out and I interviewed 100 CEOs or CXOs, kind of leaders of companies, and ultra distance athletes. I played kind of in both spaces. I hope I don't lose credibility, but I interviewed Bill Wheeler. So I'm not going to lose credibility for that, am I, Bill?
Yes, you will.
So he's done some pretty amazing things, what he's done with his business, what he's done on a motorcycle. And it's like, what is it that people like him do in order to kind of reach these new heights? And so interviewing those 100 people, it got me to write a book about, how do you kind of go ahead and do those things? And one of the things that I found is the people that I interviewed, they're very deliberate. They're very deliberate about where they spend their time, their money, their resources, and where they put their effort. And that really got me thinking. And so I've had a really good role model in this. So this is my dad about 7 years ago. He was 78. We were backpacking for a week through Yosemite. My mom wasn't overly thrilled that we were doing this because she was thinking, you're 78. What happens if something happens? What if something goes wrong and you're out there? Brian's going to have to deal with the body. And my thought was, if he dies out there, he's died what he loves doing. And so it's like, do what you love doing. And so we're out there and we're on this hike, and it's about a 40-mile hike that we were on over the course of a number of days. And I asked my dad, I said, Dad, what's left on your bucket list? And he said, there's two things. He goes, I want to hike across Ireland and go from pub to pub to pub. He's 78 at this point, and this was 7 years ago. He goes, and then I want to step on my seventh continent. I want to go to Antarctica. So we're going to come back to that in a moment. But there's three questions that I want you to think about and I want you to ask is, what's left on your bucket list? Will you regret not doing it? And then how do you get started? And so when you think about that, and you think about kind of the leaders that I talked to, they were very deliberate. But what they also never said is they never said, I can't do it. And when you say, I can't do it, chances are you're right. You probably can't. But then if you switch that around and say, I can do it, chances are you're right as well. Now, if we step back 5 years, almost to the month, what was going on 5 years ago? COVID. Think of all the things that we would have said, I can't do at that point. You look at how many of you had kids in school at the time? Handful. And that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Yeah. When the kids came back and they were learning, teachers were having to go to school and it was hard. It wasn't, there's a lot of, we can argue whether it was the right thing or not. We did it. It wasn't perfect. We got better every month. And I know because I had a fourth and a sixth grader. The city of Pleasanton, from what I understand, started to allow permitting process over an iPhone, which before might not have happened. How many of you started working from home? Or kind of went, yeah, a handful of us started working from home. Now CEOs are having a hard time getting people back into the office. Reporters were reporting from home, which they normally wouldn't do. A friend of mine was the director. His wife is the director of theater at UC Berkeley. She was in the middle of rehearsals and they moved everything to Zoom. And I asked her, I said, how effective is that? She said, it's about 30% effective at that point. And then it got better. And then it got a little bit better. We learned, we built the resilience. My favorite one, a client of mine said, hey, Brian, we're thinking about doing a wine tasting over Zoom. Anybody do a wine tasting over Zoom? Yeah. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if you could do a wine tasting over Zoom, I would have said, you can't do that. That's crazy. A couple days later, I get a box of wine, 3 bottles of wine, and with a list of what should be on a charcuterie tray. And I invited my parents over because they were in our bubble. And we opened up 3 bottles of wine and we did a wine tasting. So think of all those things you say, I can't do. And then think of the ones that we have done over the last 5 years. So if you make a minor shift from this sentence, I can't do it, to can I do it, you're starting to remove it as being impossible. When you say I can't do something, it's impossible. But when you shift it to can I do it, you remove that little bit of impossibility. And once you stop believing something is impossible, when you stop believing something is impossible, you start believing something is possible. It's very kind of minor, but it's just that shift. So here's the question I have of you is, think of one thing that you would want to do or you've wanted to do in your life that you haven't done it. And I would love a couple people to yell it out. Go to Italy. Find somebody else. There's 30 other people in the room that'll go with you. You may not celebrate number 27, but you'll at least get to Italy. Say that again. Trans-Catalina Trail. 24-hour walk. All right, I'm on, Bill. What else? Learn to fly. What else? What else? Parachute. What else? Give me skydive. One more. Scuba dive. Go to Cuba. All right. So here's the question, the next question I ask. When I'm 90, will I regret not doing this? And if the answer is no, find something else. If the answer is yes, then seriously, oops. There we go. The answer is yes, then think about how you can do it. Now, I'll give you an example, and I think there's a woman by the name of Bronnie Rare, and she wrote a book. She was a home healthcare nurse in the UK, and she was working with people in their final stages of life, kind of the last couple of months, and she got to talking to them. And she asked them, what regrets do you have? And what do you think they said? We regret the things we didn't do versus the things that we did do. So think about those things that's on your life to the first question that's on the top of this page. And will I have any regrets? And I'll give you an example. I know in my introduction, Heidi talked about how we raised about the equivalent of 180,000 street value of medicine and got it into Ukraine. When the war broke out, almost 3 years ago, a couple of days ago, a couple weeks later in early March, a friend of mine, he and his son went into Germany, rented a van, went to the pharmacy, bought pretty much all the medical supplies he could, drove down to the border of Poland and Ukraine, delivered those medical supplies, picked up about a half dozen refugees and drove them back into Berlin. At the time, the Red Cross, the countries hadn't gotten to the border, and so they didn't have that infrastructure in place. And then he returned and did it again. He raised about $10,000 to do that. And I'm watching this on Facebook. And one Saturday morning, I go into my wife and I'm reading the story, and I could see that it was resonating with her. And I said, wouldn't that be cool to do? And she goes, I think we'll regret if we don't do it. And I said, if we can get the boys on board, then we'll do it. This was Saturday morning. Our plan was to leave for Germany on Monday. We chose to delay it a couple of weeks. That allowed us to raise about $60,000 in a short amount of time, and then go out and buy supplies. We got connected up with the CEO of a pharmaceutical distributor in Germany, based through a friend. There was a Pleasanton police officer that was down volunteering in Ukraine. We got connected to her. We just started to make these connections. And so I started to work with this pharmaceutical distributor, and I said, I got about $10,000 right now. What can we do? And I said, I'm going to have more money. And we were able to get the equivalent street value of about $150,000 of prescription medicine across 3 European countries into a war zone. I didn't know what we were doing when we started. I'm still not sure I know what I was doing, but it's one of these things that had we not done it, we would have regretted. You think about, I'm sure there was a bunch of folks sitting around a room back in the late 70s thinking, why don't we try to eradicate polio? And what happened? You did it. Yeah, because of Rotary. The billions of dollars that you raised and did it. The wheelchairs, how many wheelchairs have you delivered around the world? And I'm sure there was somebody that said, hey, let's go deliver wheelchairs around the world. And there's probably 1 or 2 people that said, we can't do that. But there were enough people to say that we could do it. Now, go back to all those things that you thought about of what you're going to do and think about what's stopping you. And if you've said anything that's on this list, you're probably normal, because I've said these things many times. There's a lot of things of reasons we tell ourselves of why we can't do something. I've never done it before. Now, think about that. Everything in our life, at one point, we have never done before. Everything. And nobody's ever come up and say, oh, I have an example of when it has, but everything at one point, whether it's walking or talking at all. I don't know how. Similar, it's like we can learn. And it's kind of, if you've done any work on kind of growth mindset versus fixed mindset, the growth mindset person can figure it out. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. How many hours in a week do we have? 168 hours. Why is it that you guys make time for this meeting every single week or most weeks? We find it valuable. You place a priority on it. For those of you who go to the gym every morning, you find it valuable. You place a priority on it. There are people far more busy than I am that make it to the gym every single morning because they make it as a priority. I was coaching one woman and, for on the corporate side, and she did not like to exercise. She had a heart attack. It changed her exercise routine because she found it as a priority. So how do we make these things priority? I don't have the money. We all have different amounts of money. I spoke to a lot of entrepreneurs and they ate a lot of Top Ramen for the first couple of years as they were getting started because they didn't have a lot of money. I'm too old. I know some of you may be saying that. How old's the oldest person to run a marathon? Take a guess. 85? No, higher. 100. 100 years old. Anybody 100 in this room? Okay, close. 100 years old now. Now, if you read kind of the backstory of the individual, so he started, I think it was 89 when he did his first one. So we still have time. And his 100, when he was 100, it was 8 hours and 17 minutes, which was his marathon time. Yeah, he probably got the podium for his age group. So, and that's kind of my theory. I'm not fast. I'm just waiting to get older so I can be at the top of my age group. So that's what I'm looking for. Now, there's some people that said, we couldn't validate his age. So I'll give you that. So what's the next oldest person?
Brad. Bill.
98. So if you don't believe on the 100, okay, this person was 98. I could fail. Yeah, you could. What happens if you do? You do it again. You learn a lesson. I've run 2 campaigns in this city, one for the to help the mayor get elected, which he didn't, and then one for the school bond, which it didn't pass the first time, it passed again. 2 times I failed. And it is quite, I have been asked again by somebody to run their campaign, and I'm thinking, did you not learn the lesson? And my kids are amazed. It's like, why do they ask you, Dad? And I said, I don't know. I keep failing. I'm afraid. I get that. We're afraid of things. How do you break that fear down into smaller things? And is the fear kind of legitimate, or it's too much risk? I get that too. Sometimes we need to manage our risk. But you look at a firefighter. A firefighter doesn't automatically just run into a building. They assess the situation. They've done this a million times, and so they know what they're doing. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to, don't. So I asked 3 questions. What's on your bucket list? Will you regret not doing? And then the last one is, what do you do to get started? So in the next 7, if you thought of something, what I want you to do is think about, in the next 72 hours, what am I going to do to move forward? 3 things. Tell somebody. Tell somebody at the table, tell your spouse, just tell somebody. Have an accountability partner. If you want to go to the gym, the best way to get to the gym is find somebody else that will go with you, because they will hold you accountable just as you will hold them accountable. Commit to something. Good friend of mine, Steve Sherman, whom some of you may know, is an Ironman. And I asked him, I said, what's the hardest part of doing an Ironman? And he said, signing up. Pay the exorbitant amount to do the Ironman, sign up, commit to a date, set it on your calendar, and then go ahead and do it. When I wrote a book a couple of years ago, and I was having a hard time kind of keeping moving forward. And so one of the things that I realized is, I need to kind of commit to something. And so I told because what happens is people were asking me, how many words have you got written, Brian, for your book? They knew I was writing a book. And I said, oh, I got 30,000 words. And then a couple months later, they would ask me, how you doing? I have 30,000 words. And that went on for a while. And finally, I realized I'm not moving forward. And as my English teacher in college used to say, don't get it right, get it written. Just move forward. Don't worry about getting everything right. Just worry about moving forward. No book was written from its draft, or no book was published from its first draft. You got to keep moving forward. So commit to a date and then, kind of keep moving forward. It's not going to be perfect. The last one is visualize the end. Visualize being in Italy. Visualize whoever said flying, or kind of visualize what that is. Anybody know who Michael Phelps is? Who is he? Yeah, most decorated swimmer. I don't know how many golds he has. He visualizes touching the kind of the end of the pool before his competitor does. If you watched or read anything about the Blue Angels, every time before a show, they sit in a hotel room and they visualize going through the entire show. And they walk through it and go, okay, we're going to bank left, we're going to bank right, we're going to go forward. And they go through the entire show and visualize it. If you can see it, you can have a better chance of being able to do it. So when I left, I told you the two things that were on my dad's bucket list. One of them was to hike across Ireland, go from pub to pub. That's my brother, whom you saved his life. And I called my brother up beforehand. I said, hey, Mike, because he likes to drink beer. I'm not much of a beer drinker. I said, Dad wants to hike pub to pub, and this is your area. And he goes, okay, I've got it. And they did it. Yeah, they did it. I think he was 79. My dad was 79. And this was last year. He's 84. Jumping into his 7th continent. I said, I'll make that one happen. So I don't think you're too old. Now, the doctor did not recommend this. Again, my mom wasn't happy, but that was his problem. So I'll leave you kind of with one final note. This is what it looks like when you finish 8 marathons back to back in Tahoe. And I'll leave you with a quote of my good friend Steve Sherman. He said, there's nothing more rewarding than completing something you were too crazy to start in the first place. So think about what is it that you will regret not doing before you reached kind of that final, end zone, and ask yourself, all right, what's my crazy? So with that, think about what you're crazy. Thank you.
I think we have some time for questions for Brian. Couple questions.
You really want to quit, like when it's at that moment, it's midnight and you're in 200 miles, or you got another 100 miles to go and you're already hurting.
So when you look at a 200-mile run, you don't start off thinking I've got 200 miles to go. You start off, you think, okay, I've got 10 miles to the next aid station, and you break it into smaller chunks. And then I just need to get to that aid station. My wife will be there. My kids will be there. There'll be food. There'll be a new pair of shoes that I can get. I can get something to drink. And I know I can run 10 miles because I've done it thousands of times. And so you break it into smaller chunks. The other thing, and I've got a whole bunch of that, but I'll just give you one other, is you think about how are you going to feel when you get to that finish line? What is that emotional connection you are going to have? And think about that. And is that big enough to keep you moving through the pain? Pain is normal. And it's just being able to continue to move. So they're just two. I got like a whole bunch of others, but I'll leave you with those. Yeah.
What's left on your bucket list?
What's left on my bucket list? So there's a bazillion things. There's a whole bunch of countries I haven't been to. There's a whole bunch of states that I haven't been to. Next August 2026, so I did a marathon down in Antarctica. I'm going to be on the same ship up in the Arctic out of Svalbard, and I'll do a marathon up there. So that's just one thing. Yeah. Yeah, go.
When I was in high school, one of the things I wanted to do was go to the Indianapolis 500.
And
I never did it until a few years ago. I took my son, his oldest boy, my son-in-law, his two boys. We went for 5 days. Fabulous trip, and they all want to go back.
you will never forget that. Yeah, nice job. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Now we're ready for our opportunity draw.
Not only are we ready, we are all really ready. It's been going on since August of last year. There's only 3 coins left, 3 tokens left. And the person that gets the first ticket also gets this in. If it's red token, you get $225. So let's have our speaker take 2 of these. Read the last 3 digits of the first one.
969.
969. Who have
969 right over here.
Who had 969? Bill? Okay, Billy. I'm coming, Bill. Go for it. What? There's 3 in there and there's 1 red one for you. It's falling here now. This will be a while, guys. Drum roll. What do you think? Come on, Red. Well, sorry.
All right. And with that, we're adjourning the meeting. Thank you.